We talked in a previous video about how some relationships between numbers can be functions and some cannot. And here I want to talk about the difference between a function and not a function. Remember that our definition of function has to do with functions must have one output, only one output for every input. The key here is one output for every input. All right, so let's look at some of these diagrams and see if we can determine if this is a function or not a function. All right, and the question we're going to ask each other at each point is there one output for every input? So let's take a look first at this diagram in the top left side of my screen. And here you can see that the inputs are on the left side, the outputs are on the right side. And we have arrows representing the relationship between the input and the output. And here is the key, that this input 0 has two outputs, and that makes this not a function. So remember, we have to have only one output for every input. And because the 0 goes to two different outputs, not a function. Let's take a look at the diagram over here on the right side. This time we have several inputs going to the same output. Is that allowed in a function? Actually, it is. It's fine. As long as each input only goes to one output, this is a function. All of the inputs can go to the same output. That's fine. But only one input. There can only be one output for each input. Hope that is clear here. Another way to look at these numbers, instead of these circles and arrows, we could write them as ordered pairs, right? So here on this side, we have 0, 2, and we have 0, 3, and then we have 5, 4, and 10, 4. Notice that, again, we have, in this case, this X is going to two different Y's, and that is not allowed. In this case, so when you see the X is repeated multiple times in a set of ordered pairs, you know it's not a function. On the right side, we have 1, 6, 3, 6, and 5, 6. So it doesn't matter that the Y's are repeated. We just can't have the X's repeated in order to have a function. Now, let's look at what that means in terms of a graph. Some of you may have heard of the test for a function called the vertical line test. The vertical line test says that if I have a vertical line and I draw it through any place in my function, and if it crosses at more than one place, then we have not a function. The vertical line test says that in order to be a function, my vertical line can only pass through one place in the graph of the what we would call a relation. So let's test these two graphs that I have. Let's look at the one on the left first. And if I draw a vertical line through this graph, notice that it is crossing the graph at it's intersecting with the graph at more than one place. So this graph is not a function. Now, if I draw my vertical line, and I can draw it at more than one place on my graph, but you will notice that it only intersects the graph at one place, no matter where I draw my vertical line. So this graph is a function. So I hope this helps you to understand the difference between a function and not a function.